Mic trigger. Mic lock. Finish recording. Mic lock. Button is on.
Hello, friends. Well, I thought that I would do a pretend and play video. I'll see this as a pretend and play video, but this is more of a story time video. So, you may have seen Panaki's video, or the Penak video, on the national computer. Go watch that. Go watch Panaki's video before you go and watch this one, because that'll make more sense. But I'll explain it all anyway. So Panaki News talked about the National Police Computer, or the NPC for short, right? Now, technically, I saw in the comments there, someone said it should be the National Public Computer, which I totally agree on. Because we had our own version. Well, when I worked for the National Department, because we had our own police station, and we had our own fire station, and we were setting up our own airport, and this is before we got trades like building companies and electric companies and all the rest of it. But back then, everybody was, we had a police station at the front, and a pretend fire station at the back. And I was about 8 and 9 years old, but we had a garage at the front, because all my imaginary friends at the time, they were all working within those sectors. The newspaper office was upstairs, the tax office was downstairs. Now, I had a Tomy Tutor computer, which I'll talk about in just a second. But the computers they had before were very lame. And to be actually honest, we couldn't use those computers. Well, nobody could just use those computers. They had one computer for typing on, or word processing. This is like the 90s. Computers were really expensive as well. They costed a lot more than now. PCs with monitors and keyboards and printers and hard drives and all the rest of it costed lots and lots of money. So you had a typing pool, right? They had typewriters and all the rest of it, because you couldn't afford to get them computers. But the bigger people, the bosses at the top, they were the ones that got computers. Some of them got laptop computers. We never saw them ones, but some of them got computers. And there was a new code that came out, where the people on the door, they would see the code, right? It was an 8-digit code. Emergency people had a 3-digit code, which was 3029, something stupid. No, hold on. That was the people on the garage had that one. It was 339. And if you were on 999 duty, if you had the red phone, Yeah, because if you had certain phones as well, like radio phones, you had a radio phone or a mobile phone, there was two difference. Because radio phones could, at that time, they could access, there were phones that could go, they had like UHF and HF, right? Anyway, that doesn't really matter. But the 999 people had they had a code. They had a 3-digit code. And what happened every week was the codes were processed in the computer upstairs. The big computer, which we were never allowed to use. Because it cost a lot of money to use, like, the programs, the software they used to program on those computers it was a lot of money. And so we never used them and never really bothered with them. Until the Tommy Tutor computer, which we'd had for a while, but it was stowed away. Oh, we did have another computer, which was in another office. That was in the National Services Office, which was to be moved to where we were. And this will make sense because if you watch Panaki's video, he tells you the year, which was in 92, right? Now in 96, 97, I think it must have been 95, 96. Hold on. The year was 95. The golden year of 95. And in that year, they moved the people that deal with MOTs and all the rest of it, they moved in. One of our mechanics from the garage was getting a bit annoyed because he was moving out of there. He was only working part-time then when they came in because the DVLA, they came in, then they got their own. And I remember we were going to work with the DVLA. But we didn't. Now getting this national computer meant, I mean, there was a move of offices and all the rest of it, and there was offices closing and opening. I didn't like our new office, to be fair. So I then just worked from home because Gress had, I didn't have it. I had the Tommy Tutor computer.
Artist name, 11:17 p.m. Status bar item, mic trigger, mic lock, finish recording, button.
So I had the Tommy Tutor computer for doing all the typing on and the printing. And Gress had a National Police computer. Now, I wasn't annoyed that he had this. I knew he had it. Because Gress at the time was doing... he was following in his brother's footsteps, so he was going into policing. He wasn't magazining, whatever. But he'd come out the civil service. Now, why were they giving people from the civil service these police computers? You know, a computer with everybody's information on. This computer that Gress had every single record. And this was one of the national computers. Now, this computer it was one of the first computers. Now, Gress said it was only for Preston, because of course we covered. It was strange because there were certain areas that covered one part, whatever. It's not like now where you've got Sefton, Merseyside, all the rest of it. It was very different back then. We got given a directory for each area. You had like a phone directory, and then you had just to make things a bit more difficult, you had a areas directory. And in the areas directory, you would have all inquiries would be in that directory. And so everybody had a book. You would have a book for, you know, a phone book, whatever, and you had a big directory. But because he was doing what he was doing, he had the big directory. He had the two directories. You know, you would open it up. And then when our jobs changed, I remember I was passed on those two directories. That was about 3 years later. That's another story. But what I wanted to tell you was, Gress had the national computer. Wowie. And I remember one night, I think Gress was a bit drunk. He said, "Do you want to look at everyone's records?" I was like, "Yeah, go on. You know, no harm in that." Well, my go-kart was on there. And you know, actually, I'll tell you a story. When my go-kart got stolen the following year, that was also two on the database. Because they contacted Gress, "Oh, you're an uninsured driver," because they thought he'd crashed it. That happened. You know, they lifted the go-kart over the trail. Anyway, that's another story. But we saw everybody on there. We saw everybody and anybody. Now, you've got to remember, before that computer, we had police books. So I knew everything anyway. I knew everything and anything anyway. And before that, Gress showing me everything. The record books were coming in. Well, they'd already been in, but we were getting, they were coming to our office. We were handling these directories, but we were getting record books. And when I was becoming a journalist, I kept hold of some of the record books, because the national records, you would print them and you would keep them in a book. You would actually keep, because, you know, the internet was, even though it was around, it costed a lot of money. So we didn't really have the internet per se. I mean, Gress had the internet, and there was certain people like the big wigs, they had the internet. But I never had it, and so I had the record books. Now, when I opened a newspaper, I had access to all of these records. So all of these newspaper stories that we were writing were coming from what we already had. You know, could you imagine that now? But I mean, it's more or less coming to that, you know. And my take on that now is, you know, the national computer. In fact, I've seen a national computer. Do you remember the old, I don't know if anyone's seen them. Do you remember the old BlackBerry phones? I'm going 10 years ago, right? The old BlackBerry phones. I remember there was one policeman, I won't name his name. I can't remember his name anyway, so his name doesn't really ring a bell. But it's BlackBerry. I couldn't read the database, mind you, but I saw the layout, and it's not changed. It's literally the national database is literally 4 rows and 3 columns. They've not changed it. And you know what? This is also laughable. Panaki didn't mention this because this wasn't relevant for his channel. But if you go on a spreadsheet, if you go into Excel, I don't know if you can still do this, but you could do this a few years ago, right? I know you can do it in Google Sheets, right? If you type in on the first cell row in a spreadsheet, if you type in national police data, then you go on the internet, you type in national police data. There should be an Excel file. Just copy that across straight in and paste it, and you've got every single piece of data. Got everybody's name, address, and everything. That's how simple it is. And that's if you think how easy that is. Now, if you know what's on the national computer, if you know what's on there, if you've seen what's on there. And the thing is, if you think somebody Googling you is bad, then being on the national computer is a lot more worse, to be honest. And it's going to come to a point why these criminal records are made public. All the records we had, in fact, going back to the 90s, we didn't want to put information onto the computer because it would cost money. Even when we had computers. I remember when we had a computer in our office and we would literally, the stuff that was done offline, then we'd send an email. For them to upload a piece of information, it would cost, well, back then it would have costed about £20. In today's money, it would cost a hell of a lot more. So today, it's cost them nothing to run that information. It might cost them a bit to run a domain and what have you. But, I mean, I'll tell you, when we used to go on expeditions, and we did, and we used to go on expeditions, and we'd get police books. And we get police books with information. They're only like little notepads, right? And the information pad, they would destroy it at the police offices. But because we were a smaller police station, we were actually privatised. We were privatised, but then you were answerable to the government. Our fire department closed. We moved a lot of our fire chiefs on. But once the DVLA came, they wanted information on every single vehicle we had. There were a couple of vehicles that I had privatised. I had a fire engine and a police car that were private. and I kept the blue light on the police car, and I kept the bell on the fire engine. And they were on a separate database at the time. So there you go. That, ladies and gentlemen, is the my story of a national database, and hence why you should be wary of who you give your details to, you know, unless they need to follow something up, but then they need to send a warrant. So yeah. Anyway, just thought I'd give you the little bit of story time, and subscribe and like and comment and all that good stuff. I'll see you in the next one.
Close. Low power mode. Button. Mic trigger. Mic lock. Finish recording.